Hello and welcome to Coinstruct, the podcast where we look at the world of finance and cryptocurrency from a more human perspective. On today's episode, I am joined by Arjun Kalsy. Arjun is the lead growth for Matic Polygon network. Matic Polygon is an L2 interoperability and scaling solution for the Ethereum blockchain. Polygon has been doing amazing things in the space this last month and has recently been listed on Coinbase, the first Indian cryptocurrency project to have done so. In this podcast, Arjun and I talk of many things, and some may be considered as alpha. However, none of the things we discuss in this podcast should be considered as financial advice. Please enjoy listening. Thank you. You said it's busy. What does busy entail for you as the lead growth for Matic/Polygon?
Right. So I mean, growth essentially means, or rather, if I were to talk about my schedule, basically revolves around reaching out and talking to all the different partners we have, all the different, and these are partners on the DApp side and the infrastructure side, also all the different partners we want to reach out to. All the different sort of business units which we have currently, which are functioning, right? So we have a big gaming business. We have a big DeFi presence, lots of interesting things happening on the NFT side. So all the strategies around that, who has to do what are the different things we need to do on the technology front, right? So one is the core blockchain aspect, but the other is all the tooling around it. How do we make things easy for users? What documentation do we need? There's like a whole bunch of stuff, which is, just keeps coming every now and then, of course. And then now I've got a big team, almost like a 10-member team now. So, coordinating all of their efforts, making sure that, we're aligned, and then all the tracking, all the data, all of those things. So that's essentially what's keeping me busy these days.
That sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot.
It's 24/7, man. I mean, I can't remember a weekend I've not worked, actually, to be honest, for almost 9 months.
Yeah, it's crypto is one of those things where it's for example, markets are open 24 hours a day. But
yes.
I was talking to a CEO of a PR company, and they traditionally did standard fintech PR. And she was saying that normally if you have an email, you can send an email and maybe the next day, 12 to 24 hours, you can reply, it's fine. But in crypto, you're expected like within 6 hours max to get the reply.
Definitely.
Because especially as global teams, but just in general, 2 hours, 3 hours is the kind of expected turnaround time for any request, really.
No, that's true. Yeah, very fast moving. Yeah,
very fast moving. And also, obviously, the bull run, the mother of all bull runs, as they say, that is gonna make things move much quicker.
Much quicker.
It's interesting you said about documentation. You made a point of saying documentation. That's something that I think when you consider a project, it's one of the first most important parts of a user experience is access to documentation. But it's one that you don't think about it, but it is such a difficult thing to create, to make it understandable, to make it readable, and to cover all of the necessary bases. Documentation is something.
No doubt.
It's something.
And also, the thing with so of course you've touched upon all the right aspects, right? So it has to be easy to understand. Very readable, right? At the same time, you have to have examples in there so that people can, so for example, when you talk about technical documentation, you need to have coding examples, which people can, copy paste, try things out before they build their own applications. And at the same time, right, as your partner sort of network expands, you need to then keep adding documentation. So for example, the graph now supports us, right? So when that announcement went live, we had to have documentation for that. Then with Covalent went live, we had to have documentation for that. All the documentation for all the different oracles which work with us, like Chainlink, Band, Razor, all of that has to be integrated. So as you keep adding partners, you need to keep updating and improving your documentation so that users can or rather developers can make the optimum use of your partner network, have multiple options to execute things. So that adds another layer of complexity. And of course, as the ecosystem itself, sort of, you could say, changes over a period of time. More and more technology comes in, updates are made, and then that would essentially entail, more changes. So, for example, now there's talk about, Ethereum becoming proof of stake. Things might change there. I don't know what will, but those discussions are on. So, of course, all of that also needs to reflect in our documentation. So it sounds something, just like you said, right? It just sounds sounds like something which is very simple, but it's actually really difficult to get right.
One of the hardest parts, yeah.
One of the hardest, yeah. No
yeah. You mentioned about Ethereum becoming proof of stake. Another thing that I've been paying close attention to is ZkRollups, zero knowledge rollups. And I was reading about Polygon. One of the layers that Polygon is implementing is ZkRollups. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. What do you see as obviously Polygon is taking a really great approach by providing proof of stake, optimism, and ZkRollups, among others. But what do you see as, the forerunner? Personally, I see ZkRollups as the most impressive in terms of the underlying tech. But I'd like to get your opinion.
So no doubt, zero knowledge technology is very exciting in general, not just on the roll-up side, right, as a scaling solution, but in general as a technology. I think will have, it will have far-reaching consequences, not just in blockchain, but in the tech world in general. I mean, it is a completely different paradigm when it comes to, authentication, when it comes to sort of just the whole concept of zero knowledge, where, for example, just as a mental model, like suppose I owe you, let's say, $10. Right. I don't need to show you that I have $20 that I can pay you $10. I just need to show you that I have $10. That's enough to pay you. Right. So entirely different way of thinking, right? How do you ensure something like that? So obviously it holds a lot of promise. But again, like you just rightly said, so at Polygon, what we want to do is we want to sort of offer this umbrella of different scaling solutions, because what we kind of understand is that every scaling solution out there, has its pros and cons. Right. So when in 20, so there are two parts actually. So let me cover it in two parts. So one is that every technology has its pros and cons, right? So what that means is that the developer essentially should get the right, sort of to choose which is the right scaling solution for them, right? And because they know their DApp the best, they know what they're building, they know their domain ecosystem. So they should have the choice. And as an infrastructure provider, it is our responsibility to give the developer maximum number of options so that they can build the best kind of, DApp out there. So whether it be, if they want to use our sort of tried and tested Plasma POS chain, right, on which our entire ecosystem is built right now, or whether they want to use optimistic rollups, whether they want to use ZK rollups. Or for example, what if they want to spawn their own chain? Like, they want to create their own standalone chain. They should have that ability as well. So the Polygon SDK will allow for all of this. Now coming to which scaling technology holds the most promise. So here I must say that, every couple of years a new technology comes, which kind of, is looks like it is the best technology. So why I say this is because in 2017, when we started, like Plasma was the way forward, right? And Vitalik wrote about Plasma and everybody agreed, yes, this is the right thing to do.
Sure.
And now then optimistic rollups came and everybody's like, oh yeah, definitely we should do this. Now ZK rollups came and just like, even you feel that, hey,
it is so quick, the changes, they are so rapid.
Exactly, right. So, and this is kind of what we've also realized at, why we created Polygon, because we realized that while today you have, like Plasma POS, optimistic ZK, there could be something new in the future, which could be even better, more simpler to use, faster. So, and when that happens, we will, allow for that as well as an option for developers. So I do feel ZK rollups are interesting. It obviously is a very interesting technology, very complex to implement. There's a lot of math involved. It doesn't scale very easily to complex smart contracts and things like that. Of course, I'm sure, these are technical problems. There are very brilliant people working on these problems and they'll figure it out, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I think we'll be able to really tell how it works and how it will really scale once it's deployed.
So yes, what you said about ZK rollups, maybe the complexity of the math affecting the smart contract implementation. One thing that I'm quite excited about is the ZK rollups for wallet implementation for basic transfers. The example you used was about, if I have $10, can I get $10? Is that doable via math? I think it's perfect, simple implementation for wallet integrations. And for me, that's the most exciting part. But
definitely. Yeah.
But what you said, kudos on the name change, by the way, because love Polygon. I think it's a fantastic name. Obviously, as you said, any new solutions that come along, Polygon will accommodate it, allow people to build on it and to build with it. And as a Polygon is an N number sided shape. So super cool name. Really, really like that.
And you got it exactly right, so I'm very happy you understood it right away, because that's exactly what we were aiming for. So it's a Polygon represents an n-sided figure which can fit any shape or size, and that's kind of what we felt is that's the level of flexibility we want to offer.
Yeah.
So you understood it right at the first go, which is awesome.
So it wasn't actually so clear to me at the beginning. I've been a Matic Polygon holder for a little bit of time now, but I was really surprised actually by the scale of the changes between the Matic network and now Polygon. I didn't quite expect it to be so encompassing, So there's a lot of there's a lot of questions regarding what makes an L2 versus what makes a sidechain. And, I think sidechains tend to be, they're kind of slightly older tech. Am I right in saying that they're
So not necessarily. I mean, so again, this is a pretty sometimes can be a sore point for people. What exactly is L2, and people are fighting over this. This is L1, this is not L2, and there's Wikipedia definitions and all of that. But the way I see it is that essentially there's a very easy way to think about this, a very easy mental model you can sort of implement if you want to figure out whether a chain is a pure sidechain or L2 solution. So I would not say a sidechain is old tech. A sidechain is what it is. It's a sidechain. It is used to solve certain, it represents a solution to certain kinds of problems. And a layer 2 solution is different, right? So a layer 2 solution by definition has to be something which is an extension of the layer 1 system, right? So for example, for us, like the way our chain is structured, the way our Plasma POS chain works is that every, certain number of blocks, we will Merkle root the transactions and we will place a checkpoint on the Ethereum chain. Right. And what this means is that our chain operates like a commit chain. Right. So we're committing sort of transactions every let's say 256 odd blocks. We will Merkle root the transactions and we'll place a checkpoint. And this is purely for asset security, so that all your assets are provable and discoverable on Ethereum. So the way the Polygon chain or the previously Matic chain operates is that we cannot exist without Ethereum. Right. So we need Ethereum because we need to place those checkpoints so that the assets are secure. So that's why, we automatically are an L2 solution. While a pure sidechain doesn't need Ethereum to exist. So for example, Tron, right? So Tron is its own, chain. It's EVM compatible. So you can use Solidity, for programming, smart contracts and all that, but that doesn't need Ethereum to exist. So the question you really need to ask is that, do you need Ethereum to exist? Yes or no? If you don't need it, then you're a sidechain. Right. If you need it, then you become an L2 solution automatically. So that's I think it's just an easy way of resolving that. And again, to the point of sidechains being older technology, I wouldn't necessarily say that. It's just a solution to a different problem. So yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's a nice example. What you said for example, every 256 blocks you commit to Ethereum. I've heard people suggest that maybe that entails that Polygon is a centralized chain and it has therefore carries with it the problems of centralization.
How do you mean that would be centralized? As in, who places the checkpoints? Is that?
Yes. Is it all completely automated via smart contract or similar? Or
no, not like that. So the checkpointing is done by a validator network. So we have about 88 validators spread across the globe. These are companies. Some of them are professional companies which run validators for various networks. Some of them are bigger DApps who run their own validators because they have a huge amount of traffic. And essentially what happens in our network is that a node, or rather a validator, is randomly chosen who then places the checkpoint. So the checkpointing is done in a completely decentralized manner. It's not done by a smart contract, because that would make it very centralized and prone to attacks. So it's done. So just like how transactions are validated in a proof of stake network, where you randomly choose like a set of validators, and then you decide who's going to be the one who will validate transactions, etc. And those details are there in our documentation. Similarly, a validator is chosen who will then place that checkpoint onto the Ethereum chain. So it's completely decentralized.
Okay, good. Yeah. I don't know if you know, I'm a community manager for Harvest and also for another Harvest Finance, and another project called
Oh, very wonderful.
DRC, Digital Reserve Currency, and both have just recently ported to Polygon and onto QuickSwap. And I'm getting questions from a lot of people asking if there's any kind of centralization concerns regarding Polygon Matic, and I was under the impression that there wasn't, and it's glad to hear that you've confirmed it as such.
Absolutely, and that I mean, if we did it via smart contracts, that would be very dangerous, and it could be exploited. So it has to be a part of, so it's completely decentralized. In fact, I'll send you a link while you're at it in case anybody asks you, and then you can send them this, and it gives good explanation.
Thank you very much for that. I tell you, that's going to save me a lot of hours explaining. I can just send the link and say, please do your own research. What you said about Polygon being an L2 solution tied to Ethereum, I think for some people who, in my opinion, may be delusional, that might be a bad thing. But I think anything that is tied to the success of Ethereum is likely to be a success in itself.
Definitely, and it's interesting, you put it that way as well. So I want, I think blockchain world is revolves around open source technology. People are free to make the decisions they want to do, and to be honest, like when we first started, we also were not sort of, you could say, tied to Ethereum. We decided that we'll be like a generalized layer 2 solution on top of many different layer 1 solutions. Like that was the initial sort of thought process. But as time progressed, and as you yourself have seen over the past 2-3 years, like Ethereum has sort of grown into sort of, you could say, the largest, the most diverse, and as one might say, the most well documented, and it's the best ecosystem out there, hands down.
It is,
right? Not just in terms of communities, in terms of the DApps, the innovation, the advisors, the founding team. All of them are so passionate about this concept, and that's why it has grown so much. And what we also kind of realized in our journey is that we became, like you could say, Ethereum maximalists. I don't know if that's the good thing to say, or something like that. But that's what we became. Just as we started building on Ethereum, as the first layer of choice, we realized this is the best layer. So why go anywhere else?
Yeah. So one of the things when I was first deciding to invest into Matic or Polygon was obviously I looking through your website, and I saw on your team page, what's his name? Anthony Sassano, is that his name?
Anthony Sassano.
Sassano, the maxiest of all ETH maxis. Because I was concerned that there might be some kind of intention to maybe compete to try and take share away from. I wasn't so informed at the time, and when I saw that, I thought, wow, these guys are very much ETH maxi. They have this guy on side, so it kind of that was one of the things that ticked my boxes, was to know that you guys are you are following what, in my opinion, is the way the market's going to go, and it's really great.
Right. Oh, definitely, and it's not, and also along with Anthony Sassano, Ray Sean Adams, John Lilich, and many other advisors have now joined us. Who've been a part, of the Ethereum growth story, have now joined us to help us build, the future of scaling for Ethereum. So definitely, very happy about that.
Sure. Yeah. So speaking of, being an ETH maxi, what will happen to Polygon Matic when ETH 2.0 comes around?
So ETH 2.0.
Let me just ETH 2.0. When? If? Maybe next year? Maybe never.
I'm sure it will come at some point. We have some of the brightest people on the planet, working on solving that problem. And,
yes,
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. they'll figure it out. No doubt. It will take time. The locking contract itself was for 18 months. And with Ethereum itself, you've seen, right? It's been in existence for over 5 years, and there's so much work which has gone into that. So it will take time. So that's for sure. But will it be realized? Definitely. And where does that leave layer 2? I think that would make layer 2 even more powerful. So currently, if you look at, Ethereum TPS is around 15 TPS, right? And layer 2 essentially scales that. So our block time is 2 seconds. Right, and so we on average can scale up to with parallel side chains, etc., can go right all the way beyond 20,000 TPS or something like that.
Right?
But if you look at ultra scalability, right? Like when you look at AWS like scalability, AWS can probably do a few million transactions a second, right? And if you want to onboard hundreds of thousands of millions of users who are playing games, using DeFi, doing, you are going to see hundreds of millions of transactions happening per second. So what I feel is that even if Ethereum scales to, let's say, 100,000 transactions per second, layer 2 will still be required, because we will offer that extra sort of scalability which you need when the blockchain ecosystem itself has millions of people who are a part of it. Like, so just as a simple metric, like in its heyday, right, in Ethereum when gas fees was low and things were going well,
That was
Ethereum
a
did
nice
about
time.
maybe that was a nice time, definitely. So Ethereum did like 1.5 million transactions in a day, right? 1.5 or 1.6 million transactions in a day, and Visa or Mastercard probably do that in a few minutes,
Right.
right? So we're far from like massive scalability. We're far from getting the next million users into blockchain. And now with NFTs and gaming, those users are going to come. Like when you have these mainstream kind of use cases, those users are going to come, and that's when you will need the scalability. So even with Ethereum 2.0, L2 solutions will be even more relevant, because by that time, there will be thousands of more users, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of new users into the blockchain ecosystem.
It's almost
So
as
that
if
is on.
Yep.
Yes.
It's almost as if maybe Polygon might find itself a niche. Maybe there's a particular type of. I mean, I'm actually going to ask you to expand on the gaming, because I'm not so clued up, and that sounds very interesting. But for example, say there's an increasing gaming community that appears on the blockchain and uses as its base Ethereum in some manner. Then maybe, for example, Polygon could be the L2 scaling solution that dedicates itself onto the gaming community, and would be, rather than it having it all on ETH 2.0, the L2 solution would be able to handle that millions and millions of transactions every minute, every hour, would need something like Polygon in order to help it to scale. Yeah. So
definitely that also, and even DeFi for that matter, right? Even on DeFi, once you have, like, when I talked about Visa and MasterCard, those are finance applications, right? And even in DeFi, you want to have millions of users, and you will need that. And there was another point, right, of ETH 2.0 currently, as the plan stands, and even when Vitalik talked about it. So what you have first is the beacon chain, right, which essentially is a data layer, right, where the blockchain resides and all the data is there. The transaction layer, or rather the EVM layer, is still under development, right, because that is when you will have to figure out a way to get all the shards to work together, and transaction finality, and those kind of things. So the way I see it is that, and again, this is up for debate, because the pace of development and innovation is rapid, but the future of what ETH 2.0 might look like is that you will have this beacon chain, which is, you could say, the L1 layer, right, which has extreme like security, which is, because there are 10,000 plus nodes and all of that. And what layer 2 essentially, which is all your rollups and what we are building, etc., is sort of the execution layer on which you actually build the app. So you have the security layer, which can never be broken, and then you have the execution layer.
Okay.
Where you do where you build smart contracts, where you do gaming, DeFi, and all of these different things. So that's what I feel is going to be the structure, and even Vitalik to an extent has alluded to that when he talked about layer 2 scaling and how layer 1 beacon chain is going to be. So yeah, of course these thoughts are evolving and things are changing, but this is what I feel is what the future is going to look like.
No, I agree. I think I'm not particularly the most tech savvy person, but in any kind of in any operations, you have the base layer, the foundation, which deals with the largest of the issues, the most functional, the most essential issues, and then it scales out to the the point of sale. Even a shop, for example, they have their warehouses. Well, they have their production centers, then they have their warehouses, then they have their shop fronts, and each one is a completely separate business that requires a separate solution. And Matic is probably more towards the customer facing side, right?
Yes, definitely. So we want to offer that execution layer and this rich layer where you can build smart contracts, which is very high performance and very low cost. Where you can build like gaming, you can build DeFi, you can build like anything and everything you want, like NFT or whatever the future holds, like maybe some NFT plus DeFi gaming, etc. And this high performance, low cost layer essentially will allow sort of your average user to come and sort of do their transactions, interact with the blockchain world, And then, of course, if as long as you keep checkpointing to layer one, you will have asset security. And if the layer one itself is also high performance, then that just super scales your performance as well.
Sure.
And then, like I said, hundreds of millions of users also come, and it's not a problem.
Sure. I just like to shout out Polygon's ultra low fees. Really, so amazing. I think I paid $0.000001 for my last transaction on Polygon. Just incredible.
No, definitely. I think
it feels like a safe place to be after the recent times on Ethereum, paying such crazy gas fees.
General, I think, number I go with on average, right? If you look at all types of transactions, contract calls, normal transactions and things like that, I think on average for $10, you can do like 2 million transactions.
Goodness. $10, right. 2 million. That's a stat.
2 million.
Make a documentation of that.
That has to be there in the docs. I agree with you. So yeah, no, but definitely. I mean, this is the best part, right? This is where when you take speed and cost, when you're able, like I said, right, when you build a high performance layer and you take away those problems of speed and cost, then the sky's the limit with what you can innovate and build.
Absolutely.
And that's what I find so fascinating about working even at Polygon, is because whenever we talk to people and people come up with these insane ideas and stuff which should never be possible on a normal maybe blockchain implementation, but now you can do it because the costs are next to nothing.
They are next to nothing. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's nice to see actually, because the first L2 solution that I was really exposed to was is it an L2 solution? Binance Smart Chain. It felt like it was a warm up for people, to let people know what it's like to move from Ethereum onto another chain, to get the low fees and the high speeds, and then obviously, thankfully, everybody else arrived in good time to push them out of the way, which is necessary for the growth.
So I think Binance Smart Chain, so I think that operates like a proper sidechain, because they're not checkpointing to Ethereum or require Ethereum to exist. And so I think Binance Smart Chain would be like a pure smart chain. They have, I think, about 20 to 21 validators, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, and I think they're all Binance owned, aren't they?
Well, I haven't
sorry,
checked, to be honest.
Air quotes.
But, right. But I don't know. But definitely their block time is very consistent. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to drop me some, I don't know, is it alpha? Is it already out there? What's this you're talking about, the gaming? That sounds incredibly exciting.
Oh, definitely. So let me, in fact, just shoot you a link and they'll give you an idea of in fact, a community member put this together, and I've got in touch with them and I'm trying to help them sort of get the latest list. So you can check out awesomepolygon.com.
Okay.
And it's basically a list or a repository of all the different apps which are deployed on our network. And of course, many of them have been missed out in this list. So I'm just working with that community member to get this added, and we'll eventually merge this into our own website. But yeah, I mean, so on the gaming side, so gaming is all about engagement, right? So it's about keeping people engaged, and engagement essentially also means a large number of transactions, a large number of touch points, and of course, to make any sort of gaming possible on chain, you of course need infrastructure like Polygon. So we've seen so many interesting concepts like decentral games, which is built on Polygon, which is casino style gaming. So you can sign up as an avatar and you're in this metaverse kind of place, which is basically Decentraland. And then you can go to a casino, and Atari now is tied up with Decentral Games to create like some special kind of casino with Atari games.
Yes, I have Atari written on my list here of things to ask you about for
sure. So Atari again, of course, being one of the biggest names in gaming, have also they also evaluated us and they realized this is great. It's going to scale very well to a gaming use case.
Yes,
and I think what they're doing with Decentral Games is just the start. And there's going to be so many more interesting things to follow. And of course, along with Atari, we also have Animoca branch, which has a bunch of different games. They've built over a period of time in racing in many different genres, and they're doing really well. So Animoca is on board as well. Apart from that, of course, other very famous and very interesting games.
Sorry,
like
did you say Animal Crossing? Is that what I heard you say?
No, Animoca, ANIMOCA. But somebody should build Animal Crossing.
That's what I was just about to say. When you said gaming, I thought blockchain and Animal Crossing. Absolutely, there's the most intense synergy there.
I should write that down.
Please do that. Get in touch with those guys.
I will 100%.
Just like to say, I'm going to put the awesomepolygon.com link in the description below, so people can click on that and have a look. about what we're talking about?
Absolutely. So we have Neon District again, RPG style kind of game, very interesting. You also have verse games, right? The metaverse kind of games, like
Yes.
Vulcan Verse. Gala Games has created this Miranda's universe, which is like super cool. They're also deploying on our. So I think pretty much anybody and everybody in gaming is either on our platform or is talking to us.
Amazing.
Because all of them realize, right, on the tech side, it just works out so well, and we also offer support on stuff, tech support and marketing and things like that to help them.
Your tech support is absolutely second to none. When for both, honestly, for my engagement with both Harvest and with DRC, I've talked directly with you, and and you guys are absolutely rapid with the help. And as you said, the documentations with examples, really super useful. So I'd just like to shout out the Polygon tech team
so much
for being so helpful.
For your kind words to that. And we're improving that, by the way. So we've added more members to our tech team. We've also got some, very smart interns now who are also taking over some responsibilities, who will be joining us full time. So we're going to make it even better.
Are these mostly domestic employees, like from India?
So majority of them are from India, and so most of the tech team sits out of India. So we wanted people in the same time zone for all the meetings and things like that.
Makes sense.
But what we also have is a team in Belgrade, where Mihailo Belic, one of the co-founders, is located. So a lot of the research, etc., goes on there. And now we have offices in Singapore as well. And because of the COVID situation, frankly, everybody is operating from different places. So,
sure.
So it's kind of something like that. Yeah.
I'd like to make the assumption that Polygon is the most influential Indian cryptocurrency project right now.
No, definitely. So I think hands down. So we are the first Indian project to ever get listed on Coinbase.
Sure, I saw that headline actually. Yeah. Very impressive.
So yeah, definitely, hands down, you're the most successful one, and that's it's something very close to our heart as well. So we've been trying really hard to support hackathons and do things to sort of help other developers and really spread the word about blockchain in India, so that more and more developers get involved. So that's something which is very close to us as well, and we're trying really hard to do that.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely something we're very proud of.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, because you said at the start of this conversation that things have been very busy for the last 9 months. That coincides roughly with around maybe May last year. And
right, so when our mainnet launched, basically after that, things went completely crazy.
Did your mainnet launch? Because I was reading up, and Indian government was trying to place some bans or some restrictions or regulations on cryptocurrency, and succeeded in 2018. And for 2 years, there was essentially a no contact order between exchanges and banks, which kind of crippled the investment scene for a lot of people. So, and that stopped in March 2020, which is a few months before your mainnet. Was there a reason for that, or was it just coincidental and happy?
No, it was just coincidental, because what the government really was after was people converting fiat to crypto, and that was something which the government, because they couldn't figure out how to tax it or how it works and things like that. So that's kind of what their sort of reflex action was. So at our heart, if you think about what we are actually a software company, right?
Sure.
So we've built our own blockchain, and because every public blockchain needs to have its own token, then that's kind of where the token comes from. But that's essentially who we are at our heart. We're a software company. So we never really had issues with the government. And at the same time, like what has happened now with our sort of our sort of change to Polygon is that now we're a geographically distributed company, where we have offices in India, we have offices in Singapore, Belgrade, BVI, and what that means is that sort of that protects us from any of these geographic risks which come up when policies change. So that's kind of what's been our approach. So going forward, we won't have any issues right there.
It's almost essential for proper serious blockchain businesses to be based in multiple places around the world, because decentralization in the tech kind of should require decentralization in business operations as well. What you were saying about the government not really knowing how to deal with the taxation of cryptocurrency, I think is actually a big problem all around the world in many places. I have a close friend, he's from Nigeria, and the Nigerian government maybe 2 months ago placed a blanket ban on cryptocurrency withdrawals from exchanges to banks. And their reasoning was that, alongside it being used for terrorism plots and, for money laundering and all this other BS that governments tend to put out.
Which is strange, right? Because what's used for money laundering in the world is cash, basically.
Yeah.
Right. That's the default. What is the most the money which is the default, you could say, currency for buying drugs or selling weapons is actually the US dollar.
Sure. Yeah. Which is
right.
why it's so
cash.
globalized.
Which is why it's so, absolutely. And when I think these are just things, see, at the heart of cryptocurrency is decentralized technology.
Yeah.
Right. It's just technology which is decentralized. You can't control this. And I feel that it scares governments.
It certainly does.
It scares all these policymakers that suddenly they'll wake up tomorrow and they won't have the ability to change interest rates and, make the economy dance on their fingers. Like, it won't be possible anymore. And that's kind of where this knee-jerk reaction is coming from. But of course, there are also other governments who realize that we cannot stop this. So if you can't stop it, you find a way to maybe tax it, or you do something, get some value out of it.
Yeah.
Right. So China is trying to have a sovereign currency. So there are many different approaches, but at its heart, it just scares people.
Yeah. It's so the learning to tax it thing is this Nigerian friend I was referring to. He said he would be happy for the government to tax his crypto, because he says it would be more revenue for the government. It would enable freer trading, and it would bring the benefits of the blockchain rather than people thinking of cryptocurrency as just a way to send payments from one person to another and avoid 100%. Central banks. It's like, no, the blockchain in which these things are built on are innovation for the future. They will help solve so many problems aside from money transfers. So that's the super important point, in my opinion.
Right. No, definitely. And that's what I think most crypto holders would agree with. Like, nobody has a problem with paying some tax on their crypto earnings. Right?
Well,
nobody loves the tax man. But what I mean is that, we can have these conversations about how tax is horrible and all of that. But the fact of the matter is that, if something gets lost, you need to, help. You need the police to help you.
Yes.
Right. If your house catches fire, you need the firemen.
Yeah.
Right. You need somebody to keep the roads, to improve the roads, that money has to come from somewhere. It can't come from, you can't dream up that money. So taxes are inescapable in our kind of society. And but again, if I think majority of the people would not have a problem paying some kind of tax on their crypto investments, and the governments could benefit a lot if they just change their stance on and think about it a little differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see how things pan out.
Let's see how things play out. Yes. The reason why I found that comment my friend said so prescient was because he's living in a country where they have cut off access. So now he's saying, I would happily pay tax. Whereas people who are saying, the government cannot tax my earnings, it's because they have access to it, right? But if they were removed access by the central authority, then they'd say, well, actually, let's reevaluate this situation. Let's think about actually taxing it in a sensible manner. So I think, needs must.
No, definitely. And even with governments trying to ban, crypto, it's like trying to ban the internet.
Yes.
Which you simply can't. No. I mean, if you look at even what the Chinese government has done, which is the most surveilled internet in the world, right? And you can't access Google or any of those things. They could not stop it. Right? They can't stop news from leaking out or people from accessing internet through VPNs and things like that. Yeah. So I'm in
China right now, and I'm speaking to you through Google Meets. So it's a good example.
Just think. Exactly right. So you can't stop these things. And the smart move always is for the government to get involved, like maybe create sovereign cryptos and some sort of exchange, and really use that technology.
Well, it's interesting you say sovereign cryptos. So the three I have in my mind are, the first one is Nigeria. One of the reasons they were banning was, as I was saying, the funding issue. But the second one is they were planning to release a central bank digital currency, CBDC.
Yes.
Which is, in the eyes of my friend, is an absolute ridiculous idea. But also China is trialing and almost certainly going to release the digital yuan. And I don't know, am I wrong in saying this, that one of the main reasons for India's cryptocurrency bans was they were trying to release a sovereign digital currency?
Definitely. So the Reserve Bank of India, has plans. They still do to, come up with their own sovereign sort of cryptocurrency, and because they also realize you can't stop it, right? And of course, the advantages of using blockchain technology are pretty clear, and in terms of sort of its ability to so many government services which are currently run through banks, etc. You could just replace that with a smart contract, right? And that would save governments huge amounts of money, which could then be invested in sort of your human capital, right? In sort of education, healthcare, in infrastructure. And governments realize this. They also have economists, they also have technologists. Maybe more, who some of them may be more misinformed about technology. But they do have their own experts they can reach out to. They can always reach out to people in the industry like us as well. So there are definite advantages for governments to do so. Governments then will be able to transfer money to their citizens anywhere in the world. You won't need visa. So imagine if you're, let's say, a Chinese citizen and you're in let's say, somewhere in Europe, your government can send you a salary, right? Without having to sort of go through like some form of Visa or MasterCard or some other convoluted mechanism, which is wasteful. And then, and then do so many, amazing things will happen. And I feel that, if you do these kind of things, it'll bring the world closer, right? It'll bring people closer. And why this was not possible probably earlier is because what has made this possible is basically the mobile phone. The fact that even in very impoverished third world countries, you still have fast data networks. People still have smartphones, and the fact is, what a smartphone represents is that everybody carries around like a very powerful computer, which is also networked with them all the time.
Access point to the network, yeah.
It's the access point, right? And it's with you all the time. Like there was a time, like before mobile phones, where you wouldn't leave your house maybe without your wallet. Right now, today, you can't imagine leaving your house without a mobile phone. It's there with you all the time.
I haven't carried a wallet in about a year and a half. That's a very something I haven't thought about. But yeah, you say exactly, that. Right? I haven't carried my wallet in such a long time.
Exactly. So this is what I'm saying. So this mobile phone, this device, this network device is with you all the time. It's next to you when you sleep. It's there when you wake up. It's your access point. And because all of us have it, and with the advent of even faster networks like 5G and possibly 6G after that, like now we've reached a point where we can actually do this. Like discussing CBDC back in maybe 2016 or 15 may have been like too early or too hopeful. But today the technology exists.
It's true.
And right and even in like I told you in very impoverished countries as well, this technology exists. It's not just a first world country thing. So because it exists, governments can now actually do this and pull it off. So right? Even in India, where I'm based, right, 50% of the nation already has access to broadband internet. And then the next 50% will probably happen in another 2-3 years. So yeah.
The progress in India has been really astounding in recent years. Mm-hmm. And, I grew up in the UK and not knowing so much about kind of progress and how things were working there, and the information gap actually. And my kind of issue is the information gap with reality of these places. Like, so, anywhere outside of the UK when I was younger, I know that in America, this particular phenomenon is particularly bad, whereby we live in our bubbles and we assume that countries outside of the bubbles we live in are doing in some ways worse than they actually are. And it's one of the reasons that I wanted to leave the UK so badly was to find out how things are really happening in these other places. And the recent 10 years in India, the progress has been really quite astounding, and it's really making me kind of hopeful for the future, because when you're younger in the UK, you kind of get told that things are fucked in other places, and it's just not the case. Obviously there's suffering everywhere, and it is, there is problems, but it's just not the case that things are as bad as we're told they are.
That's why it's so important to travel, right? And that's why everybody says, why traveling is so important, because it'll open your mind to these possibilities. Like it's only when you travel, when internet is one thing, right, which opens up. You can go and see something on Google Street View, which is one thing. But going to a country, experiencing the cultures, meeting the people, that I feel is just so important. And the best part about today's world is that it's some of those problems have been solved. Like if you have fair bit of capital, a little bit of capital, you can travel to countries. You can book flights from your phone. You can book accommodation. You can go and find your way. You can read about what you have to do once you get to a nation. So those kind of things. So traveling is easier today than it ever was.
And cheaper.
And I really encourage, and cheaper. So I think people, should really take that leap, everybody reads about traveling and doing those kind of things. But sometimes you just need to take the leap, go to a different country, experience it, maybe even for 10 days, and it'll open your mind to so many possibilities. So,
I agree. You can see things on a picture or even on a video, and it can give you an opinion of a place or of a culture or a lifestyle. But you'll never really know it until you're there and you speak to the people and they react to you. When you see people react to you and how they react to you, that's when you can really understand kind of how things are in that society. Because if you see a picture, you'll see them reacting to a camera.
Definitely.
It's the person to person interaction that makes you realize how things really are.
Definitely.
I was actually going to ask you to give some advice to I watched a bit of Lex Friedman. He's a very good podcaster, and he says at the end of his things, give some advice to the youth. I was going to ask you at the end, but I think that's really solid advice to everyone, is to just travel, as if you can travel and if you can leave your culture, not just from the UK to Ireland or China to Taiwan. You should get out of your culture, I think, and see something else. It's really important.
Definitely. Yeah.
Something I'm super stoked about is the Atari. Is it exclusive Atari partnership with Polygon, the NFT partnership?
Right. So I won't say it's exclusive. I think they've decided to partner with us since they felt our technology, our ecosystem was doing really well. I don't know if they plan to partner with others in the future. But what I'm really happy about, what Atari really represents to me, is mainstream companies taking interest in Web3, right? And I think Atari is going to be the first of many companies. I know that all other companies, whether it's the Ubisofts of the world or Electronic Arts, and all of them are now eyeing the blockchain, sort of the Web3 world, and how they could potentially bring their offerings there. So I'm really happy that Atari's taken that leap and sort of and using their brand name to sort of bring that attention to the Web3 world. So that I think is like a big win for the blockchain universe in general. Polygon aside. So I think that's great. And then with us, yes, they plan to work with Decentral Games. We are in conversations with them and how we could potentially help them expand their presence in the Web3 world. What are the other things they could do? And that's a continuing conversation.
Awesome. And at the risk of saying something I shouldn't, or pushing you to say something you shouldn't, I heard that there's going to be a integration of AAVE into Polygon, not just the token on available to be bought, but also the actual potential system being hosted on Polygon. Is that true? Can you tell me?
So I can't really comment on it now, but all I can say is that I think there is some evidence out there which is rather irrefutable. So again, I think it would be best if the community waits for the official announcement.
Sure.
Right. But yeah, like interesting things are going to happen, and we have many big announcements planned.
Okay, I'm going to name this podcast episode Alpha with Arjun, I think.
Sure. I think that's a great name.
Okay. One thing I wanted to ask you was, what is Plasma?
Right. So Plasma is essentially was a technique to scale Ethereum, which was proposed in 2017. I think it was actually proposed before that, like as with this concept of shadow chains, which Vitalik came up with, I think 2014, if I'm not wrong. But in 2017, it was named Plasma. And essentially what Plasma does is, like I told you, is that you instead of keeping all the transactions on layer 1, you essentially offload all of those transactions to a layer 2 chain, right, which is doing this. And then what you put on layer 1 is that Merkle root, right? So you're putting some proof. So you're putting a proof that all those transactions happen. So all your liquidity, NFTs, transactions, you're putting that proof on layer 1. So suppose somebody wants to prove it tomorrow, they can do that. But all the transactions and the computation has been offloaded to layer 2. Right. And thereby you can scale.
Which is cheaper and faster and more efficient.
Which is cheaper and faster. Sure. And if you can make it decentralized, that's even better. And of course, there are other quirks. So there are other variations of Plasma as well. There's minimum viable Plasma, more viable Plasma, and there are other variations of Plasma, the 5-6 different variations. So so that's there as well. But in general is what I'm telling you, high level. This is what Plasma was all about.
Okay. Because I first ran into the term on your bridge, the wallet, the Matic bridge. This is actually something I've been meaning to speak to someone in the know about. So I saw maybe yesterday that Zappify, they have released you can trade through multi-chains so that you can have Ethereum on Ethereum and you can buy something on Polygon. Now, does that take advantage of the bridge as usual? And would you have to pay a fee for that to work through Zapper?
So that's interesting. I think Zapper team will be a better place to maybe answer that. Because to be honest, I haven't tried it yet. I just saw it yesterday.
Yeah, it's quite exciting
I have to try it. Very exciting. I saw that. I was like blown. I was like, wow, this is proper multi-chain.
Yeah.
If it works this way, and I'd love to try it out. And just to add just a little bit more color on what you talked about on the plasma side. So when it's on the bridge, right, what essentially it represents is that there are two ways to exit from a layer 2 solution to a layer 1 solution. Right. There is the proof of stake exit, which essentially relies on our the strength of a validator network to ensure that all the transactions on the layer 2 side are legit. And then you exit, that on L1. And thereby everything then which happens on L1 is also legit. So that is the proof of stake exit. And then you have your plasma exit, right? So the plasma, the way it was structured, the plasma exit is that you do the exit and then there is a period of 7 days in which anybody in the network can sort of come and challenge this transaction, right? So suppose you did something funky on the layer 2 side, you did something wrong there, and then you're trying to, sort of put that information on layer 1 as to make it legit. There's a 7-day period where somebody has to sort of catch your lie, right? As one might say, or for example, challenge your fraud proof, as one might say. So that is the plasma exit mechanism. So the plasma exit, the way it was designed and the way it was conceived is that it takes 7 days. So there's a 7-day waiting period or a challenge period, as it's called. So proof of stake bridge allows you to exit in about maybe 3 hours, depending on Ethereum congestion. But the plasma exit will require you to wait for a period of 7 days.
That's really great that you told me this, because I literally yesterday had a question from the DRC community and they were saying, why am I being told that it will take 7 days to process a withdrawal? We did come to the conclusion that it was if you use plasma as opposed to POS, but we weren't so sure why. So it's nice to know that that's a mandatory thing, and there's a reason for that 7 days.
Right, that's how plasma was structured to make it super secure, right? So because there's a 7-day period in which anybody in the network can sort of. So this ensures that that there is enough time. So if you just give it 24 hours, maybe people may not have time to examine the fraud proof. But if you give them 7 days, then that offers like higher. A very high level of security. But then again, that was conceived because, if you don't have a decentralized enough network on the plasma side, then a plasma exit is important, right? Because then there's a higher chance that something went wrong on the layer 2 chain, like there was a bad transaction or somebody tried to do double spending or something like that. But if your layer 2 sort of network like ours is sufficiently decentralized, then you've already solved that problem. You've already ensured that all the transactions happening are legit.
Okay.
Because all the validators are watching each other.
Security is always an important issue. It's one of the
extremely important.
For me personally,
it's
my biggest fear about this space is how it's still the Wild West. All these fantastic pieces of innovation with these true professionals and absolute high IQ gigabrains, but it is still the Wild West, and your funds can go in a minute. I can't believe it. I saw on Twitter recently, someone said he's 25,000 followers, an influencer guy. And he said, accepting applications to my private chat, send me your seed phrase via DM and I'll add you. So he's obviously said it as a joke. And he said an hour later, he got 5 people who sent them their seed phrases to accounts that actually had funds in them as well.
Can you imagine?
Absolutely crazy. So crazy.
Right. You have to be really careful. Yeah.
Yes, I mean those people have no hope, sadly. But yes, yes, you have to be careful. I do want to know your thoughts. I had a chat with Kevin Merko, the CEO of Coin Metro Exchange, really great guy, and he was essentially saying that for now there is no way the cryptocurrency market, the scene in general, can become mass adopted until it decouples from Bitcoin. In the sense that if Bitcoin goes up, everything else does. If Bitcoin goes down, likewise, everything else does. And in some way, I do agree with that. Because right now, everything is kind of going well together. Things are working well together. Ethereum goes up, it's not a problem. Matic goes up, it's not a problem for Polkadot, for Cosmos, because everything is kind of going up. But at some point, there will be competition. There will be. Do you see there being competition with, for example, Cosmos or with Polkadot, to the point that it, for an interoperability solution. Do you find that might affect the future of these solutions, or is there a world in which they can all coexist?
Oh, you mean like all different layer 2 type of solutions? Or
Yes.
because you also did mention Bitcoin, so that's
Sorry, yeah, that was a two-pronged question, really. So
okay. So let me try and cover both actually, right? So and I'll try and keep it really short. So essentially, why this happens is that when Bitcoin goes up, everybody goes to Bitcoin, and all other coins fall, and then the reverse happens. Is because of what Bitcoin represents, right? So Bitcoin is like a store of value.
Sure.
Right. And it's essentially just like how gold works, right? So, for example, in times of extreme uncertainty, people tend to buy gold or other, kind of assets, which, are, which are sort of labeled as safe assets. Like over a period of your lifetime, the value of gold will only increase because the population of the world as such is increasing and there will be, increased scarcity of this particular product. So that's kind of what Bitcoin represents. So that's why and this is so interesting that because even in capital markets, right, if you look at the general economy, when there is increased uncertainty in capital markets, that's when people tend to also go into cryptocurrency, right? Because they feel that if I put my money in the market, I want to lose it. So cryptocurrency is a better bet.
Yes, with the recent inflation risks, that's a huge thing.
Exactly right. So I mean, just look at what happened in the US as well, where the country has now printed so much more money, and there's going to be inflation. So people then tend to go towards crypto because it just makes more sense in this kind of uncertain world. So this is kind of how. So it's more based on mentality and what Bitcoin represents. And now, as far as the decoupling is concerned, I think with DeFi coming into play, the decoupling will happen. I think what more and more people currently we're in a situation where a lot of people hold Bitcoin, but I see a lot of that Bitcoin sort of value also flowing into DeFi, and then people will take that money and put it to work, and then that will eventually solve so this kind of problem would solve. But what I'm saying is that Bitcoin represents a store of value, and that mindset will not go away, right? Like people will always have there will always be the safe investment which everybody wants to make.
Agreed.
Whether it's gold or whatever. And Bitcoin represents that investment. Like it's an investment which people feel can only go up. Why? Because there'll only ever be 21 million Bitcoins.
I think the
the
point that we were
there.
trying to make was that maybe it would be nice for Bitcoin always goes up, fine, that's great. But it would be, I think, necessary for the health of the ecosystem for Bitcoin to not be the most dominant in terms of market cap and in terms of coinage. I
just think we need to get more people into it. So so this is what I say, right? So this is like saying that, I wish people would not buy gold and all. I would just say that
there is more than one store of value other than gold, though, so gold has dropped down from the top of, in terms of market cap of gold. Gold isn't at the very top.
Yes, it has dropped.
Tech businesses, the stock market, these sorts of things with actual tangible use cases tend to be. I don't disagree that Bitcoin will remain a very strong buy for lots of people. DRC, for example, is trying to position itself as a potential store of value token. So we're trying to. We personally believe there's space for multiple stores of value in the cryptocurrency world, in the same way that there also is within the retail world in terms of silver, gold, property, these sorts of things.
Right. No, definitely. But like I said, what you're saying is 100% right. But like I said, it's a mentality here, which will not change. And I think what we just need to do is get more and more people into crypto.
Agreed.
Right. To sort of, right. And I think that is the solution to this problem. So rather than sort of trying to fight blockchain, what we need to do is that if there are, let's say, 100,000 people in the world, or maybe 500,000 people in this world who are doing DeFi, we need to make that 50 million or 500 million. And I think that will sort of bring that sort of liquidity or volume into the game where, stuff like this won't matter too much. So that's kind of, so that's on the Bitcoin side. You'd also asked another question with respect to the competition between layer 2 solutions.
Yeah. So as Bitcoin falls, the others will rise up, and then will there be hegemons, or will there be multiple L2 solutions living in harmony?
So the way I see it is this, right? So currently, what do layer 2 solutions eventually represent, right? So if you think about it, ultimately scaling is a technical problem, right? And to any technical problem, there are bound to be, maybe more than one solution, right? So each layer 2 solution represents each layer 2 sort of chain represents a solution to the scaling problem. Now, what we are seeing right now, and how I feel this entire space is going to play out, is that, what we're seeing right now is that there is this sort of cross-chain bridging happening, right? So where where companies are creating these bridges which bridge all of these different L2 chains so that liquidity can flow, right, from one chain to the other, from other chain to one other. and this is happening across the L2 landscape. So what's happening is basically, and if you were to look at it, let's say from a high level perspective, is that all of these chains represent islands, right? And each island sort of has its own community, right? So each chain has its own community. Now, all of these are currently islands. Once you bridge all of these islands and that the community can now freely move from one chain to another, what's going to happen over a period of time is that eventually people are going to migrate towards that one chain, which they feel has the best ecosystem.
Sure.
Right. So it's this strange way of, sort of natural selection, which is already happening, by the way, where people are trying different chains and figuring out which one works, the best for them. But bridging will amplify this, right? Where people now they can freely move. And then what's going to happen, like I said, over a period of time is that people will choose this one community, and it'll happen organically. The community, like the whole blockchain community, will start gravitating towards this one protocol, which they feel, which will eventually be the dominant, you could say, protocol amongst all of the other L2 solutions. And will the other L2 solutions exist? Yes, they may for certain specific use cases, but they will be this one dominant sort of chain, which again, like I said, which will be chosen by the people.
It's a very interesting analogy. I like the idea of the islands. So where people decide to settle is where they build the cities, and where the cities are built is where there's better things to do, more places to live, a higher quality of life.
Exactly, right.
So it attracts more people to that island. The other islands still have their communities, but there's a pull factor.
And if you bridge these islands, then you accelerate this process.
Right, of course. Then people, of course. Very interesting analogy. I have a nice picture in my head of that.
Exactly. So that's the right way I feel to visualize it. And that's what I feel is going to play out over the next, let's say, maybe 2 or 3 years. And then, we might see something else. But yeah.
Well, I'm very excited to see it. And I do genuinely believe that Polygon is going to be at the forefront of that entire scene. So it's very exciting big stuff. And I'm sure you must be very excited.
Oh, definitely. I mean, one thing which I love about the crypto world is that every day you wake up, in the morning, there's something exciting to do. There's something interesting, to work on. So, and then, like you said, it's 24/7, right? So it's addictive.
It is addictive.
I can't imagine doing anything else.
You said when we mentioned mobile phones, you said how you sleep with it next to you. Okay, I'm going to give you my advice, and that is put your phone out of your bedroom when you sleep.
I need to do that. Yeah, I know my wife has been telling me the same thing. Put it in some other room. Don't because otherwise you wake up and the first thing in the morning is just checking Twitter. You're checking, what's happening in the markets. And I don't think that's good.
It's super detrimental for health. Leave your phone outside your room. When you wake up, then you can. I also would say shower and eat, or shower and have some water. Look outside before you look at your phone. That's something that I've been doing the past 5 months since crypto has essentially taken over my mental space. And it does, you allow yourself some time to wake up. And I read an interesting book about your brain has to download what it learnt in its sleep when you wake up. So if you give yourself 20 to 30 minutes when you wake up to allow your brain to kind of process all of your memories that you had when you were asleep, then you'll function much better throughout the day.
I think that's great advice, and I'm going to implement that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, let me know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm conscious of time because we have an hour, so I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming on, Arjun. I will almost definitely be keeping in touch with you in terms of needing more documentation.
Of course.
And I would love to have you on again, maybe later when Polygon has, maybe after it's released its full multi-blockchain proposal, which I haven't actually gone into today, but I would like to.
No, definitely, and I had a great time as well. And I think we've covered some very, very relevant questions which a lot of people in the community had. So thank you so much for having me. And of course, we should do it again once the Polygon SDK is out. I'm sure we'll have more interesting things to talk about, more questions, and then we can take those then as well.
For sure. Thank you very much, Arjun, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.